It's about history, policy, and impact. A new perspective on current affairs, bringing experience, insight, civility, and scholarship to the urgent issues of today. It's about our past, present, and future. Your host, Pulitzer Prize-winning author and journalist, Douglas Blackmon. From the University of Virginia's Miller Center, this is American Forum.
Welcome back to American Forum. I'm Doug Blackmon. The Republican National Convention gets underway this week in Cleveland, Ohio. Unless something really unimaginable has happened since we recorded this program, there's no suspense about the GOP nominee. It will be Donald Trump. But there are still enormous questions to be settled in a truly unique political year. For one, what does the convention and the party platform that Republicans will adopt this week even matter when the new leader of the GOP has made it clear he is beholden to no group or ideology? And many dedicated Republicans remain uncertain about Mr. Trump's political sincerity and whether his controversial past comments about racial minorities and women could end up damaging their party forever. What will it take for Donald Trump to relieve those worries and truly convince his party that he has the strategy and discipline to defeat Hillary Clinton? Meanwhile, how will the media cover this coronation after months of tumultuous relations with Mr. Trump and his campaign? Joining us in this episode to discuss those questions is a familiar face and voice to anyone who has followed American politics over the past 50 years. Former PBS anchor Jim Lehrer, who has covered the most important stories in American life, from the assassination of John F. Kennedy at the beginning of his career, through the Watergate hearings, the impeachment of Richard Nixon, 2 wars in the Middle East, and the election and re-election of the first African-American president. Along the way, he moderated 12 presidential debates and authored 3 memoirs and 20 novels, the first one published in 1966 and the most recent in 2013. He retired from his role as anchor and executive editor of PBS's Nightly News Hour in 2011 and now serves on the commission organizing this year's presidential debates. Jim, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Doug. Delighted to be here.
So, we all know you, whether we know you, we think we know you. But we've known you as a moderator, an interlocutor, an anchor. We really haven't known you as a prognosticator. You're the most trusted man in media, the heir to Walter Cronkite, but we really haven't heard you theorize much over time about politics. But now you get to do that if you want. So tell us, what do you imagine is the most important thing for Donald Trump to do at the Republican convention to create the highest probability for him to win the presidency 4 months later?
That's what I call a really interesting question. The options that he has before him in terms of what he could do at the convention to change the potential outcome in the election itself in November are too numerous to mention. And a lot of it's going to depend on what has happened between now and when that convention actually gets underway. The probable is as going into this, here again, using your caveat that something huge has not happened, that the probable is that Hillary Clinton will probably be elected the next president of the United States, based on 2 things: the polling, simple polling, and the more complicated area of simple demographics of the electorate. And that would be, but that could change, et cetera. And that's where you get into the possibles. It's also possible that she could win by a huge margin. There are reports even that she could win by a historic landslide. It's also possible that Trump could emerge from Cleveland as a viable candidate, with the full support of the Republican Party and other folks, and he ends up through a set of circumstances or events that are not related directly to the election, but are that are like a terrorist event, and we've had plenty of those. But something like that, a monumental event that would somehow affect the outcome of the election, and it could turn the probable probability of Hillary Clinton being elected into a possibility of Donald Trump not only not losing, but of losing by a smaller margin, but also he could in fact win.
If you took exactly the sequence of events that has occurred as we've seen it, but could subtract from it a half dozen statements by Trump that were viewed by many people as having simply gone too far, that on topics that seemed to energize a lot of his supporters, but then went several degrees way too far. If you could subtract those out, that perhaps that would be a very different situation than the one that he faces, but that he's brought this additional trouble on. What I wonder is whether in the course of the convention, is that what his primary objective should be, to somehow demonstrate that from here on out, I'm not going to do any more of those, I can pull all this together?
Yes, he might. He would have to say some things he might even have to say, hey, look, I really didn't mean it when I said I was going to build the wall. Hey, I really didn't mean it when I said the Mexican immigrants, or most of them are rapists. I really didn't mean it when I said we should bar the immigration of Muslims. And I really didn't mean it then. I really didn't mean it. I really didn't mean it. Really didn't mean it. Anybody who believes he's going to do that, do you know of anybody? I just don't think that's realistic. I think my I wouldn't call it prognostication. My observation is simply that I think Donald Trump's going to rise or fall on who he is and what he's already said and done, and he may continue to say and do things that upset people, but he may also continue. Those things may also activate the people who support him. More so. So we will see. I don't expect. I wouldn't. I think it would be a mistake to suggest, oh my God, we're going to see somebody entirely different in Cleveland than we've seen up till now. I think that one is a pipe dream.
How big a danger to the party and the future of the party do you think this whole moment in time may be?
There may be some people in the party who say that there are moral issues involved here. This is not just about politics. That the Republican Party must stand for things that are, quote, moral. In fact, people like Paul Ryan and people have talked about that in terms of some of the things that Trump have said that go beyond politics, that are simply just wrong. And then there are some people who say there's some things that he's said they're just not true. Now that's politics, but it's also a moral issue as well. And so there's so many things at work that are to suggest that, to say that this is an unprecedented situation is the understatement of at least my time. I've been doing this, as you said in the introduction, I've been covering these kinds of things for almost 50 years, and I've never seen anything like this.
But I've heard you discuss in the past, when you've talked about your role as a debate moderator, that the things that politicians talk about when they're running for president, which tends to be things like tax policy or their strategy for the defense budget or international security, those are the things politicians want to talk about, but the things that actually really matter and that come out in debates and such are the unexpected things and our sense of confidence in characteristics of these candidates that are kind of detached from specific policies. In this campaign, it appears that there may not be much talk about policy at all, but just a lot of, or overwhelmingly talk about these personal characteristics by each other, about one another. I mean, is that what you imagine?
I believe this will be the most personal campaign for president we've ever had in this country.
And what do you mean by that?
I mean that Hillary Clinton's going to do everything she possibly can to talk about Donald Trump and make Trump the issue. And Donald Trump's going to do everything he can to talk about Hillary Clinton and make Hillary Clinton the issue. And we're talking negative in both cases. And the differences over policy will come up. But what will happen is, I think, I may be wrong. There's precedent for that, by the way, for me to be wrong.
Really?
Yes. I'm
unaware of that.
I don't want to go into it. I don't want to go. But it seems to me that that thus far, that all the emphasis is on the characters of these two people. The language that has come in out of this campaign during the primaries, mainly on 99.9% on the Republican side, has been so coarse, so unprecedentedly coarse and personal, that there's no reason to even imagine that it's going to get any better. In fact, it's going to get worse. There's some people who believe this will be not only the most personal, but the nastiest campaign of all time. Even only Thomas Jefferson and John Adams were worse to each other than these two folks are likely to be.
But now they turned out to be best friends later, and so does that mean that Hillary and Donald Trump are going to end up best friends?
Now, that's one I'm really not going to prognosticate on. Yeah. I think that however this election turns, however the convention turns out in Cleveland and the election itself turns out, that we've already suffered as a society for some of the things that happened and were said during this primary campaign on the Republican side, and it happened to be on the Republican side. It happened to be, and Trump was the centerpiece of it, of course. But there's a reason why people don't talk in uncivilized ways, because we're a civilized society, and some of those barriers were removed publicly in front of everybody, millions of people on television. People talked about other people in ways that they normally don't do that. I mean, there is a restraint. The reason that we stop at stop signs in our cars isn't because we want to stop. It's because there's a sign there that says stop, and if there's going to be, if there's not a cop there, there's going to be a picture taken of us, and that restrains us. Well, there's a way to have civil discourse in our country over issues about which we disagree. And we've always done that. Yes, there are things you may think about somebody, but you don't have to say them. That's one of the things that Hillary Clinton's got to be careful of. Going after Trump. I mean, do you remember what happened to Marco Rubio in the Republican primaries? Mm-hmm. Got hurt badly and hurt himself permanently, in ways that I don't mean permanently politically. He just hurt himself, and that's good. That's a good thing in some ways, that he got hurt instead of helped. And I think, but there's enough evidence that to me at least, that we've got some healing to do. No matter what the end result of this campaign is, we as a people, we've got to say, we've got to figure out a better way to disagree. Disagreement is at the heart of our democratic society, and the expression of disagreement, of our disagreement and wide public ways is also at the heart of our society. But what we have now that we did not have before, and what's happened particularly on the Republican side with Trump, is that we have the new technology has created an amplification of everything. I mean, somebody can tweet. You know what a tweet is?
I do, actually.
Yeah.
I do.
Well, I'm not sure I do, actually.
I can explain it later.
Okay, all right. But you could tweet something, and suddenly that can be on the front page of a newspaper. That can be in 27 million blogs. That is the world the way it is and the way it's always going to be. You can't put that one back in the bottle. But we can certainly put our language and the way we have discourse, the way we do discourse, and the way we disagree, we can put that back in the bottle, in the good bottle.
You're in the business of organizing presidential debates now, not conducting them yourself. And it's important to remember that the Presidential Debates Commission that you serve on only organizes the general election debates.
Amen. Say that 100 times, please.
Exactly. You're not responsible for the debates we've seen so many of over the past year.
No.
But particularly on the Republican side, there was a lot of criticism by candidates of the debate process and specific debates and specific approaches to it. What did you make of that? Was that valid, that the really harsh things that candidates were saying about the process and journalists being unfair and the debates being organized in bad ways?
Some of them were really awful. Some of the debates were. I watched every one of them. And some of them were awful for different reasons. Because the questions were terrible. The questions were designed to enhance the let me show you how tough I am, moderator type. Some of them were awful because they turned into competing pep rallies. They let everybody scream and holler and hiss and boo and all this sort of stuff instead of keeping the audience quiet. Some people, some of the debates were terrible because the candidates chose not to answer the questions. And some of these debates had 17 candidates in them, and instead of organizing the debates in such a way that you could have a debate with 17 candidates, and it could be meaningful if you just chose one subject. And just say, okay, we're going to talk for 90 minutes, all 17 of you, about what we're going to do about ISIS. And that's all. And in the process, see, my belief about all these debates, including the fall debates, even the bad primary debates, you do learn something about the candidates, even if the question is, and some of them were kind of, why do you wear blue ties? And if not, why?
You don't like my tie?
Yeah, you don't like. No, I love your tie, but that was a hypothetical. That was a hypothetical. But you learn something about the person, and so I'm generally in favor of all kinds of debates. But the primary debates, they could be so much better. But you look at it. In terms of what is the purpose of the primary debate? The purpose of the primary debates is to give whether it's the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, for the Democratic debates, is for the Democrats in one case, the Republicans in another case, to choose a nominee. And the debates show in a comparative way the candidates. And so it worked. The system, in quote, worked because they ended up with nominees in both cases, and the debates contributed to the end result. Now, would the end result been different in either case if the debates had been better debates or different debates? Who knows?
You were, as the debate moderator, like 4 years ago, for instance, I found a calculation that was done with the 4 debates 4 years ago, and that calculated how much time the moderator talked versus how much time the candidates talked.
You did that?
I didn't calculate it. Someone else did. But I found this calculation. And you were the one who talked the least of the 4 moderators the last go-round at about just under 8 minutes of the entire was your voice. And then Martha Raddatz was almost 13 minutes in the debate that she did. And but you've been praised for that, for being sparse, and staying out of the way, letting the candidates talk. You've also been dinged at times for, in the eyes of some people, being too passive. Right. not following up, not putting the pin on someone when they were trying to slip away. But what do you say about either of those observations about the way you moderated in the past?
Well, I think the people who praised me for what I did were correct. I think the people who criticized me were wrong. No,
succinctly put.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the fact that debates should be debates among or between the candidates. They shouldn't just be formal. They shouldn't be a fancy name for interview programs. And so many of these debates become the moderator spends all the time coming up with questions. It's not about questions. It's about subjects and then listening. And then you listen to this answer and then you decide whether or not to follow up on that, and whether it's candidate A's responsibility to say, hey, no. For a moderator to take position to try to fact check in a debate is just very difficult. That's not where you fact check. You fact check in an interview, not in a debate. The candidates do the fact checking on each other, and you facilitate it. That's what the the best question the moderator can say. Do you agree with that? That doesn't require 8 hours of research, to, that's I believe in that very strongly, and there have been one or two people who have criticized me for that.
And so
they no longer exist, by the way. Yeah.
that's good. I'm going to make a note of that.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind in the future. And so the debates coming this year that you'll help to organize, how will they be different from what we've seen before? How will they reflect any of this thinking?
We're still in the process of working all that out. They've all been the dates have all been set, and the locations have been set, and now the details are just about how the formats will go, and all of that. And there'll be serious events. There will not be cheering and hollering by people in the audience, and they will be probably. And I would prognosticate that it's probable that more people will watch these debates between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump than have watched the last 3 Super Bowls combined. It's going to be very, very interesting.
6 or 7 years ago in this room, you said, politician for me is not a dirty word. Quite the contrary. I have great respect for people who participate and offer themselves in the world of politics. But you were offering a kind of a defense of the generally negative perceptions of politicians. Do you still feel exactly the same way?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The percentage of losers, I don't mean technically losers, but losers, the way the word is used by Donald Trump, say, the percentage of losers among politicians is about the same as it is among journalists, preachers, bankers, lawyers, doctors, whatever. And our political population reflects the population, and live with it.
Maybe 4 years ago, certainly 40 years ago, and certainly 20 years ago, if a presidential candidate, any party, under any circumstances, had just said, even slip of the tongue, accidentally said, a prisoner of war. I'm not very impressed by somebody who was a prisoner of war. I like winners, not people who get captured. One line like that, and you're a veteran. One line like that would have ended almost any previous
toast.
Any
That's
presidency.
Right. Absolutely.
And I really don't know what to make of it. I mean, is it that there are other dimensions of Donald Trump that are so remarkable and maybe even credible, maybe that are a good reason for him to be president? I'll leave open that possibility. But is it that there are these other things that are so attractive that just outweigh that balance that out? Or is there something profoundly wrong with a large population of the American people that wasn't wrong with them not long ago?
Data show that of the people who voted for Donald Trump in the Republican primaries, if you add them all up, it constitutes 5% of the eligible voters of the United States. So the fact that there were 17 candidates, it was only at the end that he ever went above 50%. Some of those things he was 25%, some of them were 30%, whatever. And the total number of people that voted for him is small, in terms of the total electorate that is now eligible to vote this coming November. When people get all exercised about the awfulness of Donald Trump, I get awful. My real exercising comes over the fact that people aren't really exercised about it. That they are support not him personally, but some of the things that he has said, and it's okay with them for somebody to say that, and that troubles me. And if I'm not convinced yet that there is a huge number of people who feel that way, and we're about to find out.
Jim Laird, it's been an immense honor to have you.
The honor was mine. Thank you.
All of us at American Forum hope you'll follow the national conventions and continue this dialogue. That's what we're about, engaging with thoughtful citizens, encouraging strong opinions, and just as strong a commitment to civil, well-informed debate. We also hope you'll join our conversation at the Miller Center Facebook page or by following us on Twitter at Douglas Blackman or at American Forum TV. To send us a comment, watch other episodes, download podcasts, or read a transcript, visit us at millercenter.org, American Forum. I'm Doug Blackman. See you next week.
That's